Dr. Qazi originally came to America to pursue his degree at the University of Houston in the summer of '63.
After completing my master's, I wanted to get my PhD, and it was my good fortune that I got my admission in doctorate at the University of Houston. And I came here in summer of 1963, and to the best of my knowledge, I was the first full-time Pakistani student at the University of Houston.
He was able to establish Eid Salah because he was the founder of the MSA, which still runs to this day at U of H.
At that time, there were only 3 persons, and I was the imam, and there were only 2 persons.
And this eventually led to more opportunities such as churches and temples calling on Dr. Qazi to be a guest speaker.
The international office will get several calls for a guest speaker on Islam, and I thank Allah that I have the blessings or the chance of going to many churches here to tell them what Islam is. Then I start getting calls from different societies. I'll go to different homes.
He even had a chance to cover the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
I think at that time there was close to more than 500 people, and I was chosen to give that talk. And I emphasize only one thing, that do not confuse that religion and politics are 2 different things. Muslims do not hate Jews, and Jews should not hate Muslims.
Being a young man and alone here in America, Dr. Qazi saw some others falter.
But you see, when a person will get a card and suppose he gets a date, then it becomes a big news in the whole Indo-Pakistan community that such and such person got a date, And we will all talk, what happened, what did he do, what happened?
It wasn't all fun and games. Much like all immigrants, Dr. Qazi had his funny story of integrating into the country.
One of my classmates, you can say, that took me out for a dinner. This was a restaurant on Alameda, and he ordered 2 or 3 dishes. So there was a meat, and there was something which is yellow, and there was something which is yellowish green. So I started mixing all those together, and when the dinner was over, the man started laughing. I said, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Brother Qazi, Mr. Qazi, didn't you know what you had done?" I said, "What?" He said, "There was a meat, this you have to take first, and this was the dish, what you call dessert, you have to take later on. So why did you mix it together?" I said, "Why didn't you tell it to me? They're 2 different things."
He was finally connected with the larger Muslim community, which was still a very small handful of people, when he met Dr. Yazdi.
I discovered that there was a Persian by the name of Dr. Yazdi,
who ended up becoming the foreign minister of Iran.
Then there were 2 Turks, Shadi Askul and Argun Blair. Then there was a man, Dr. Shukri al-Khatib. We met in Dr. Yazdi's home, and we formed the Islamic Society of Greater East in 1970.
Soon after meeting, they started the Islamic Society, not ISGH yet, and they held their first Eid Salah.
First Eid prayer was held in Dr. Yazdi's home. There was about 10 or 12 persons, and mashallah, then we went to the University of Houston, where I led the second prayer, and thanks to Allah, the first Eid prayer was 33, and that time there were 30 students at that time.
Establishing a Muslim center was a gigantic milestone and the next natural step in the evolution of this tiny Muslim community.
Now I want you to listen to me very carefully, because see, a Muslim does not go by the means. A Muslim goes by what Allah promised to you. And I keep saying to everybody, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. When you will struggle for the cause of Allah, Allah will keep on opening the door for you.
It wasn't easy though. Just like today, gathering money for the masjid seems to be a little more difficult than it should.
A man came by the name Harold Tillman. Harold Tillman was an attorney here, and he became a Muslim, and he said, "I'll help you out." And Harold Tillman gave the security for us, and we had the key for the center without having any to worry what to pay or not to pay. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا.
Throughout this entire time of working to build the community and himself, he didn't forget about his #1 priority in life, and that was to please his parents.
I used to get letters from my mother that you promised to come back after 3 years, and now 1 year, 3 months, 17 days are left for you to come back. My heart will pop out when I get this letter. When the time came, I did not disappoint my mother. I could have gone for PhD, I did not disappoint my mother. And the same thing happened in 1980, that I was working as the chairman, the assistant dean, And my mother was very sick. I resigned and came back here, and look the blessing that Allah has given to you. So I'm telling to all of you, do the best you can, but unless you get the du'as of your mother and father, the happiness and success will not come to anybody in life.
So Dr. Qazi, what do young people need to do to help improve the community and take it to another level?
Kicks the old generation out. Unless you kick it out, nobody will leave the place, and I'm one of those.
And what's one of the top lessons you can share with young people today?
وَإِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ. Unless you will have the cause of Allah, Allah will not help you. وَإِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ. Unless you help Allah, Allah will not help you. So He will get a job, you will get a car, but the blessings of Allah will not come to you unless you struggle. And remember, struggling means changing priorities. Struggle means taking some beating. Struggling means fighting for the cause of Allah. Don't make Allah a part-time job.
We shift to Brother Tahir Safi, an amazing brother of Turkish descent born in Baghdad in 1934 before the end of the war. When he came, there weren't many Muslims, so you met a Muslim wherever you could. Brother Tahir got lucky.
Samir Shamma. Samir Shamma is the brother from Egypt. And happened he was in an apartment complex that time, and I met him.
After meeting Samir Shamma, he was introduced to a relatively larger Muslim community where he met a man we've heard of before.
Alhamdulillah, he came and introduced himself to me, and happened in the same complex. And we start having a good feeling, and invite each other, and alhamdulillah, then he told me about Ibrahim Yazidi, and then we met Ibrahim Yazidi, and so I have a couple of pictures here showing that he was the one Eid prayer in Ratko Chapel.
Brother Tahir's main passion, more than anything else after his family, was to establish a permanent masjid for the Muslims.
Invite with Ibrahim Yazidi's house on the weekend. It's only less than 25 number of family that exist at the time. So we used to stay a weekend with Ibrahim Yazidi's resident, and we open Mus'haf, read, and have something to eat, and we do our prayer and go home.
Discrimination and hate has been an age-old problem, and our early founders had to deal with it, either because of their ethnicity or their creed.
And I suggest for them to go ahead and have our own masjid, our own location. So I was given the upper hand to go ahead and look for a location. I picked to happen 1756 Richmond Avenue. But we have a little bit incident problem with a close street shopping center. Shopping center, they found out Islamic Society under 1756 Richmond Avenue, they start towing our car away from the parking lot. And as you know, towing car from parking lot costs us Muslim brother to go ahead and release the car, about a couple of $100. And the harassment started in there.
The harassment became intolerable and threatened the safety of Muslims.
And we tried another location on OST, they call Street OST in Houston. We went there and put some money down with a big building. And then they asked who's IGH, we told them Islamic Society of Great Houston. They declined to sell.
Despite the discrimination at the masjid, Brother Tahir had no problem fitting in.
I was invited to a Lion Club, a Rotary Club, to say something about my country, my religion.
So being such a good-looking guy, Brother Tahir, how did you handle the lady situation?
Alhamdulillah, happened my wife, she's from Iraq. I went over back to Iraq and got me, young lady there at the time, and it was in 68.
Giving dawah and conducting interfaith activities was done regularly on campus with Brother Tahir.
There was only 4 Muslim that go to university with me at that time. And I remember Baptist Student Union, they call it. It's on the campus, and Newman Foundation on the campus, and they were interested, to see who we are and stuff like that. They invite us. They invite us to the church. They invite to PSU, Baptist Student Union, they call it, And we went there and we got acquainted with them and tell them about our faith and what Islam all about. Alhamdulillah, we were a good ambassador at that time.
We move on to the story of Imam Farooq. Born and raised as a Baptist in Houston at the end of World War II in 1945, and you never know it by looking at him, with the backdrop of the Civil Rights Movement and amazing figures such as Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X rahimahullah, Imam Farooq was introduced to Islam through random people on the street, openly giving dawah and inviting others to Islam through Elijah Muhammad's Nation of Islam.
1957, I was about 12 years old, and I heard Islam. It's taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is the Nation of Islam at that time. I heard Islam in the local barber shop. And at that time, you could get just about go to the barber shop and get whatever conversation, you know, basketball, football. I mean, they talked about just about everything. But during that particular time, they would meet, the Muslims would meet in the barber shop, you know. And they were, and I would come from a strong Christian background, so naturally some of the things that I heard, you know, it was kind of against everything that I had been taught in the church. So it kind of fascinated me, you know, and I became curious. So when I took it to my mother, and I said, Mom, I was in the barber shop and they were saying this about Jesus and this about the Bible. And she said, oh boy, she said, you need to quit listening. That's a bunch of popcorn. That's what she called it, you know. But it was something that stuck with me for many years, you know.
The next evolution of Imam Farooq's life into Islam was during Vietnam.
I joined the military when I was about 19 years old. My last stretch in the military was in the Republic of Vietnam, where I served I was a Sergeant E5, serving as a section chief over one of the big guns, a 155 millimeter house. That's a very big gun. But at any rate, that's where I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. This book was sent to me. My wife sent it to me, as a matter of fact. She said, once you read this book, Eugene, you will have a whole different opinion on life, on the white man. I said, you have to read this. And she sent it to me, and I read it. I was in Dak To, Vietnam, and we were under siege. We'd been under siege for 30 days, and that book blew my mind.
After Elijah Muhammad died, his son Imam Muhammad Muhammad took the reins and changed the directions of the Nation of Islam towards a more mainstream outlook, and forged the creation of the modern Muslim American identity amongst indigenous Muslims. It was easy and difficult.
If Islam could change the pagan Arabs and bring them to a civilized relationship with the world, he said, pure Islam can change us, you know, through the teachings of the Qur'an and the Son of Muhammad the Prophet.
And they had to learn new things, such as praying and fasting.
We were taught many of the aspects of becoming a Muslim. We were taught directly by Imam Muhammad Muhammad. And his community was a community that covered just about all the major cities in the United States at that time. And he taught us on the what we call the national hookup. In other words, it was through telephone conference call, whereas he would address the whole community. This is where he taught us how to pray. He taught us Quran, you see. But he did have imams that he personally taught there in Chicago.
And it was also when he heard his first adhan.
I heard the first adhan on the telephone hookup given by Daniel Kareem. And from there, we just began to study.
As part of the earliest Muslims in America, Imam Farooq's community would shift places to worship Allah alone and find masajid that were close to them, but not without the help of a certain celebrity.
One in particular was a place, it was before we moved in, it was called Temple Lumberyard. With the help of Muhammad Ali, you know, and this when he was the world heavyweight champion, he helped us financially to get this place and to renovate it, you know, and to make it into a very comfortable place for us to have our temple, you know. But since then, you know, this very building that we're in now it came from that start. In fact, it was the Third Church of Christian Science. Muhammad Ali, with his own money, also financed that. You know, he bought the structure, which was once a church, you know.
I was interested in knowing what the contact was like between immigrant Muslims and African American Muslims. They didn't have the internet then, and connecting with one another must have been next to impossible because of the sheer size of the community. But they made contact.
We had two visitors that came to the temple at one of our meetings, and it was Saeed Gomar, and I forget the other brother who was with him. But that was my first experience with immigrant Muslims.
The immigrant Muslims may have built most of the masajid in Houston, but a pivotal and key contribution to the community in Houston at large was through the Muslims that were born here. Developing blanket food and medical drives was key towards growth. However, the important thing that we learned was that it wasn't necessarily to spread da'wah, but to show kindness and spread goodwill amongst their local communities, including the prisons.
My experience with the prison system began in 1983 under the leadership of Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. I was one of the first Islamic chaplains hired by the state of Texas. There was one brother before me, two brothers before me, Imam Akbar Shabazz and Imam Wali Hasib.
Imam Farooq and his community were also responsible for the first radio and first TV show in Houston focused around Islam.
The radio effort started around 1978, and it was on an all-Spanish station, KLVL. And we had an hour every Wednesday night. We had an hour where we would play the world broadcast of Imam Warithuddin Muhammad.
They had a little bit of competition.
George Foreman also had a program that same night. They would come on after our program, and they would come in, you know, and they had this thing about Christian love, etc. So one of his members asked me, he said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name is Farooq." He said, "What kind of name is that? It sounds like a Muslim name." I said, "It is." I said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Gay." I said, "What kind of name is that?" You know, and he didn't like that too well. He was a big guy. I said, "Oh man, I may have spoke out of turn. This big guy might crush me."
I asked him what he would say to all Muslims in our leadership.
To those who are coming after us, to have it in your heart, to make some of the same sacrifices.
Today, as Muslims living in Houston, we stand on the shoulders of great men like Dr. Qazi, Brother Tahir, and Imam Farooq. There's a Chinese proverb that says, "One generation plants the trees, another gets the shade." They saw problems right in front of them, and without any special skill and armed with only iman and determination, they were able to plant the seeds of one of the largest communities in North America. It would have been easy enough to just pass the buck and say someone else can do this, but they didn't.
Hello and, oh, that's loud. Hello and welcome to Community Life Forward's oral history of the Houston Masjid of Al-Islam. We're so glad to be here in 2012 at the Community Life Forward. So let's give a big hand and thank all of you all for being here. Come on, let's hear y'all. We are so excited and pleased to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm Rahman Khan, and I'll be serving as your host this afternoon as we share and present this history of the Houston Masjid of Al-Islam and all the wonderful things that have happened in this community. I'm going to give a brief history and then begin to invite our speakers up here, and we'll begin the dialogue shortly. Founded in the 1950s in the barbershop of Charlie Boyd, the community of the Houston Masjid of Al-Islam is Houston's oldest and most historic Muslim community. The Houston Masjid of Al-Islam began as temple number 45 of the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Houston Masjid of Al-Islam transitioned to the Universal Message of Al-Islam with the passing of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, following the eminent Muslim American scholar and pioneer of Islam in the United States, the late Imam W.D. Muhammad. The Houston Masjid of Al-Islam moved from location to location from the mid-1950s until 1978. In 1978, the Houston Masjid of Al-Islam purchased a former Christian Scientist church with funds donated by heavyweight champion Muhammad Ali and converted it into a masjid. The converted masjid located at 6641 Belfort remained the home of the Houston Masjid of Al-Islam until the building was destroyed by Hurricane Ike in September of 2008. Today, that new masjid opened with the name of the Honorable Imam, Warithuddin Muhammad. We have several leaders who will be joining us on stage today, but first I want to give a recognition to all of the wonderful leaders who have been a part of this masjid, and I'll share all of their names here. Imam Ibrahim Kamaluddin, Imam Hakim Akbar, Imam Sabur Hassan, Imam Rashid Al-Amin, Imam Eugene Farouk, Imam Haywood Talib, Imam Khazem Ahmed, Imam Wazir Ali, and Imam Khalis Rashad, and Imam Basil Abdullah. Let's give a hand for all of these leaders here in Houston. With that, I want to bring up one of our first imams, or one of the first ones we have with us today, and we'll share a little dialogue with them. So let me bring up Imam Eugene Farouk. Please give him a hand, y'all. Y'all can do better than that. Imam Eugene Farouk. Wa alaikum assalam. Welcome. Imam Farouk, so glad you've joined us today for this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to dialogue, to get this information and dialogue about the history of Houston. First of all, tell us what years were you here? I heard you've been around for a while, so tell us what years you started here in Houston.
Well, with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful Redeemer, I had the pleasure of hearing Al-Islam. Islam was taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad back when the movement first started in Houston with Charlie Boyd's Barbershop. I think
it was the 1950s.
It started around 1950s, but I don't go quite that far back.
Right.
1958.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And I think I was 13 years old then, and I heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Charlie Boyd's Barbershop, and it was really something. I mean, when you have heard the teachings of Christianity,
yes,
you know, the majority of your life, and then you hear something that different,
yes,
it's a cultural shock.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was.
But that was my first experience with Islam.
Yes. So you were around from the 1950s, so 1958, all the way up to the 1970s. So you had to see a lot of different changes. What was one of the biggest changes that you saw?
Well, the biggest change that I witnessed was when Imam Warithuddin Muhammad assumed the leadership in 1975, that Savior's Day 1975. I didn't get a chance to go to Chicago. We had the hookup, the Coast Circuit, and that was a moment for me that I think in my history with Islam, that was the most, for lack of a better term, exciting moment.
What messages do you give to the believers, the Muslims, as they come about the history? What's kind of an important message that you always tell them about assuming leadership here in Houston?
Well, from the very beginning, when I really became active in the movement, I didn't become active in the movement until 1972. I always wanted to see Islam develop here, not only in this area, but all over the country, develop in a way where it was established both from the educational standpoint and from the economic standpoint. And that's something that I have witnessed happening gradually, but we see it on the forefront very, very, very plain. And that's what I encourage the upcoming leadership to continue that pursuit, because one of the most important things that we have to offer is the establishment of Islamic community life.
Right. Which is why we're here this week, is establishing community life. So we're going to bring you back up with all the imams and all the leaders we have today. So we're going to give him a hand, and we're going to bring him back up when we bring everyone up in just a few minutes. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll have you take a seat right over here, ma'am. Yes, sir. Next up, we'll bring up Sister Naima Bey. Sister Naima, give a warm hand for us. Sister. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Naima, welcome here today. You're here with all the imams, and some of the brothers here, some of the imams here said, we got to have a sister up there to talk about this history of Al-Islam here in the Houston area. Tell us about your beginnings here and what kind of impact you've seen this Houston community make.
I also became very active in 1972. It was my last year in college, and I got invited to the masjid. And once I went, I stayed. And that was also during the time of Elijah Muhammad and Savior Day. So I've seen lots of transitions. I think I can count 9 resident imams.
Wow.
that I've
Wow.
seen
You
since
get it.
I've
That's
been
what I
here.
had. You're right. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. When I think about our community, I think of 2 things. Searching, which is when most of us came in, searching for that God-given nature that we knew we had not fulfilled. And we are a community of evolving. We've evolved in many ways and still taking place now.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen here, as asked Imam Farouk? What are some of the biggest things that you've seen change here in Houston over the years?
When I think about sisters, the first change I think about goes back to the first experience when Sister Captain, Imam Farouk's wife, came back.
Sister Captain,
She took a trip to California, and she said, sisters work, and they have money, and they have jobs. So that was eye-opening for us to know that we could go out and experience the dunya.
What did that mean to you when you heard that?
It meant a freedom. It meant opportunities, challenges, an opportunity to go out into the world and let people know who we were, what we did, and not just look at how we dress and ostracize us. So that was good. The second change was when Imam Muhammad came into leadership. There was always 10% of the teachings that I couldn't follow. I could not look at a little Caucasian. I've always loved children. To look at a little Caucasian child and hate that child. It wasn't in my nature.
Say it was the devil.
It's not what God gave me. And actually and honestly, the third one has come with our current Imam, Imam Wazir Ali. Yes.
Why was that significant for you?
Because he has been so innovative. You know, a leader has to have vision, and he has it. And we've been exposed to so many more cultures, Muslims from around the world, interactions. It's just been really good. It's been fulfilling.
All right. Sister Naima, baby, we're going to invite you back up here with the other imams here. So let's give her a warm hand, y'all. Next up, we're going to bring forward Imam Haywood Talib. Imam Haywood Talib, give him a warm hand, y'all. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum assalam. Good to have you here, Imam Haywood.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. So tell us, when you got started here in the Houston community and became the Imam.
I accepted Islam in 1976. Attended a few meetings at that, well, just before then. What I remember, I guess, impressed me the most was during the time of, I think it was before the transition, we had an entertainer named Joe Tex.
Joe Tex, oh yeah.
Yusuf Aziz. And I remember my wife and I went to a meeting to hear him. That was our drawing. I hadn't gone to any other meeting, but when Joe Tex came, we wanted to go see and hear what he sounded like as a minister. And then as time went on, I remember someone invited me to come to another meeting. And one of the things I remember about that is that the person that invited me, once I started going, he disappeared.
Wow.
But I've enjoyed being in the community, watching it grow and so forth. And as far as being an imam of that community, I guess maybe 1983, 84, I became the imam and served, I think, for about 10 years. And of course, if anybody's been in that position, you know there's a lot of things that go on in front, behind the scenes, and so forth. So it's been a very, very wonderful experience of just seeing Al-Islam, and especially the language of Imam Muhammad, be put in the atmosphere to challenge language and the knowledge and logic that we have out now.
How receptive were people? Because you came in at a time when the Imam W. Muhammad was already in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
How receptive did you think the people were outside of the masjid to that language?
Well, it took them a while because we weren't, after the transition, and brothers weren't necessarily forced to go out,
Mm-hmm.
then the language wasn't out in the public, in my opinion, like I think it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, with speaking engagements and a little bit more educated people and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
it began to drift and get out in the community,
Mm-hmm.
out in the society. But once it started to come out, then for the most part it was kind of puzzling
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of people because the Nation of Islam had given us a surface knowledge, and the Imam came in and went a little bit deeper into that surface knowledge to give a better understanding and meaning and direction. And so therefore when people started to hear that and make some connections, even with myself, because I was interested in the Bible, and it was questions that I had about the Bible that wasn't being answered. And almost the very first time I heard the Imam's language,
Came through.
questions started being answered.
Came through.
And from then on, questions are still being answered. Yeah.
And you were imam for how many years there?
About 10.
About 10 years. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And you, I'm sure we'll talk about this more with everyone
Yes.
about the challenges and opportunities you had
Yes.
there. Okay.
All right.
Give it up for Imam Hayward Taleem. Thank you. Up next, we have our brother Imam Khazem Ahmed. I tried to put the Khazem in there. Khazem Ahmed. Give him a hand, y'all. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Imam Khazem, so good to have you here, sharing this history and learning this history, and I'm sure this, hopefully, God willing, will be beneficial for everyone who gets a chance to see it. So first tell us, what years were you the imam here in Houston?
From about 1994, I think, to about 2004.
Wow, a long time. So what a lot of people get from Houston, and people around the country talk about Houston, they say that the Houston community, and particularly, I know under your leadership, was a studious community, a community that really helps people learn and engage in the study of the Qur'an and the Arabic. What motivated you to do this here in Houston?
Well, first of all, from my coming to Houston and becoming a resident imam there at that time, that was never my intent. My coming to Houston was to just propagate the religion of Islam in the city and to assist a good friend of mine who was here, Imam Ibrahim Kamaluddin, who is now passed. May Allah forgive me his sin and grant him paradise, who Imam Muhammad loved very, very much, and would come here many times to do tapings, and Imam Farouk would always pick him up and take him there, etc. And that, and to propagate the religion with the insights that he gave, which was not as prevalent as Imam Hayward Talib just said, it was not out there as much. So that was my initial intent. And then there was a meeting, and they asked me would I be the resident imam, which I turned it down, and turned it down because I had got away from resident imam work. But I accepted with the condition that I would train someone and be on my way and continue my work. But Allah's the best planner. You know, we say, "Wa makaru wa makarullah wallahu khayrul makirin." They planned a plan, and Allah has already planned His plan. His was the best. So there was I began to work with the training of imams here, and one of the brightest ones out of that group was Imam Wazir Ali, who was the present resident imam. And people ask me, they say, what do you think is your biggest accomplishment that you had in Houston? You know, because we was able to secure land. We would do a lot of other things. I said it was developing the human resources that we have in our youth, and that was in Imam Wazir Ali. And it proved very fruitful, his leadership and his ability, because that's my history in the community. Since I've been in since 1969, but I've always traveled and worked to build communities. I did that when I was an officer in the Nation of Islam, and I continued that work. And I had been to Dallas. I was in Dallas for 3 years. Imam Muhammad sent me there. I'd been to Atlanta, North Carolina, Miami, Florida. I'd been to places to help strengthen those areas, and that's what I wanted to do here. And we began with the Qur'an. We began with the Qur'an in the Arabic. And again, because of something Imam Muhammad said once, he said, when our community learns how to read the Qur'an in its revealed language, you're going to see most of the problems eliminated and the progress will take place. So this is what I see happening in Houston now. He promotes the Qur'an. It's something that we started years ago, and it's continuing.
It seemed also too that the interfaith work was heavily utilized by you as well, and some of the things that you were doing. And I think it was happening around the country, but I know particularly here in Houston, began to working with other communities, and you see it presently. What was the motivation behind that, or how did that tend to happen when you were here? Was that purposefully, or was that just kind of happened because of what the Imam was sharing?
Well, it was a continuation of of the history of the work that we have been doing ever since Chicago. And my introduction to working in the churches was not always the most favorable one. It was in Chicago. Imam Muhammad was teaching one Sunday, and I was on the west side. I was the imam on the west side of Chicago at that time, and he said, all you have to do is go out here and just tell the people there is no God but Allah, and then Muhammad is his messenger, and just leave. That's all you have to do. I said, well, that's very easy. So I had a dawah team on the west side of Chicago, about 13 to 15 of us, and we were going to churches. We would sit in the churches, and we were waiting, and then the pastor would say, we have visitors today. Is there anyone that'd like to say anything? I raised my hand. I stood up. I said, my name is Imam Qasim Akram from the World Community of Islam in the West, and I'd like to tell all of you here, there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And then the next one would get up. All 13 of us would get up and do that. And I went to church after church after church, and I can't tell you the problems that it started.
So I say you were well liked, huh?
No. So a good friend of mine, Imam Dr. Nasser Ahmed, many know, I had caused so much stir in the community on the west side, I had to get him, and we had a meeting with the pastors. They had a meeting, and we all met, and I prayed to Allah, and he blessed me to tell them. I said, brothers, we're not here to be enemies with you. We just want to be your friend. Our enemy is drugs. Our enemy is poverty. Our enemy is crime and gangs and etc. And they embraced us, and so that began. And when I got to Dallas, you know, we began a mission different. And we spoke in over about 500 churches. In fact, I spoke in so many churches in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they used to call me the city evangelist.
Wow.
And, you know, I was the
a Muslim evangelist.
Well, they used to call me the city evangelist as a Muslim, and I was the secretary, general secretary of the West Dallas Ministry Alliance, and we spoke in the churches on a regular basis. So, in our work in other parts of the country as well as here in Houston, we began, but the emphasis was not so much as on churches as much as it was on developing our community to articulate the Qur'an and its ability to be applied in every human life. And that was a struggle within itself, because it required to get the Qur'an, you need to know Arabic very clearly, and the insights of the Imam, and it was opposed by some. You know,
Hold on, I want you to hold that because it's about to get real good. We're going to bring give a hand for Imam Kazim Ahmed. We're going to bring him back up in just a few moments, and I look forward to hearing more, inshallah.
thank you very much.
Next up, we have our resident Imam, Wazir Ali. Give him a hand. So they come. Good to have you here, Imam Wazir, and be here in the wonderful, warm city of Houston.
Alhamdulillah, it's definitely warm.
So Imam Wazir, you are the resident Imam now and masjidwdm. Quickly, the masjid name. Most people know Wdm Muhammad. Why was it important for you all to even bring that name about when you reestablished the masjid?
Well, the former building was a converted Christian Science church that Imam Muhammad was never particularly pleased with. And he advised Imam Qasim Ahmed to tear it down and build a mosque from the ground up. We were a little slow in responding to the Imam's request. So 2 days after, the Imam, may Allah give him the highest reward in the Jannah, 2 days after he returned to Allah, a hurricane named Ike came through and granted the Imam's request because the masjid was torn up. And in a discussion, we had bounced the idea around. The name Masjid-wdm Muhammad had been bounced around, but we hadn't come to a final name. But we did build the masjid based on Imam Muhammad's recommendation that we build a mosque, that we decorate the landscape of America with mosques built on West African architecture and minarets. So we followed that to a T, and we had bounced around different names, and we discussed the name Masjid-wdm Muhammad, but we didn't come to a final conclusion. Then in a conversation that I was having with Imam Qasim Ahmed, he re-brought the recommendation up. He said, Wazir, I think it'd be a good idea if I would like to make the recommendation that you name it Masjid-wdm Muhammad. And to respect the Islamic shorter process, we took shorter on it, but it was really an academic shorter because there was no resistance to that recommendation.
That's good.
So to honor his legacy of work in the United States of America and his connecting us back to our past in West Africa and celebrating the best of what Islam was and did for Africa and to reconnect us to that dignified history, we named the masjid after the man who had the single most impactful contribution to the history of the development of Islam in America.
Allahu Akbar. And it's a shining example for people all around the country now. And you'll see others, I'm sure, we popping. Others are popping up now similarly.
But if you would allow me,
Yes.
it would be a mistake not to mention the other masajid
Yes.
in the city.
Yes, and that was my next question.
Okay.
I was going to ask you. So,
All right.
as I asked Imam Khazam about the interfaith work,
Yes.
part of your early legacy, so to speak, has been the intrafaith work, the work within the city with other masajid, with other communities, and your leadership even with other masajid and communities. Share with some of that history and where it is today.
Well, it began before me. And I think, our Prophet Muhammad, he said, Arham, the word for wombs, comes from my name, Rahman.
That's right, yes. Yes,
And he
sir.
said, he who cuts off the family relationships will not be successful. So I think we should always show the utmost respect to those who came before us.
No, like that.
If not, we will abort our life because we will not be connected with those who gave us birth.
Amen.
So way before I came to Houston, Imam Basil Abdullah was advised by Imam Muhammad, to from what I understand, he's not here to speak himself, but from what I can recollect, he had a conversation with Imam Muhammad, and Imam Muhammad advised him that it was okay for us to work in different areas of the city. So he split off. He went and found a crack house. He's a success story because he was once a convict. He was once in prison, and he got out of prison. He went and found a crack house that was abandoned. They remodeled it. They made it into a masjid. They impacted the community in the oldest African American neighborhood in Houston called Independence Heights. Wow. And then over a process of around 20 years, Allah blessed them to acquire a significant amount of land, and they built a masjid from the ground up. That was Masjid Taleem Muhammad.
Wow. Wow.
So that was the first masjid to branch off. When Imam Qasim first came to Houston, Texas, he told me of a vision to start a youth masjid, populated, ran, and directed by the younger generation. And in 2005, Allah blessed us to pick up on the recommendation that he had and the vision he had. Wow. And a second masjid was born. Wow. So this makes 3 altogether. And that was Masjid Al-Qur'an. And then I'll let Imam Khalis Rashad talk about Ibrahim Islamic Center, which is the 4th. And the Imam's instruction and direction is so clear that young Muslims from around the world whose parents moved to America and they were born here in America, they heard in the Imam's commentary things that made the religion so clear to them that large numbers of them now attend Masjid Al-Qur'an, Masjid Taleem, Masjid WD Muhammad, and Ibrahim Islamic Center. So this generation of Muslims growing up, we don't have the organic divisions that the generation before us had for understandable reasons. But since we grew up in a common context, we work together in a very significant way.
And I'm assuming that the children of the families that you talked about are supporting, not just attending, but financially supporting as well. I mean, and feel that the messages enlighten them so much that they want to support.
Struggle on the way of Allah with yourself and your wealth.
Right.
But they're not the only ones. Allah has blessed our generation now to have doctors, to have lawyers, to have pediatricians, to have pharmacists, and we are now also making those contributions economically that our parents struggled so hard and sacrificed so much to put us in the position to make.
Praise be to Allah. All right, we look forward to hearing from more Imam Wazir Ali. Let's give him a hand. And finally, we will bring up Imam Khalis Rashad. Let's give him a warm welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Imam Khalis, so good to have you with us. Imam Wazir just talked about this younger generation of accepting and appreciating and following the language of our Imam W.D. Muhammad. Were you part of this group, this transition that came, or this, not even a big transition, but this group that came behind and said, we want to embrace and grow Islam even more?
Yes, I'm in the same generation as Imam Wazir Ali. About 3 years ago, we started an Imam's training course. And it was inspired by Imam Qasim Ahmed. And the Imam's training course, the whole objective was to take it was about 10 people in that course. And the idea was to not only teach Islam, but to teach leadership skills, to teach all the interfaith work as well as interfaith work. And throughout that course, we were strongly encouraged to go out and start something. So you had, everyone had projects. So we have people that came through the Imam's course, during the course, would be speaking in college campuses, be out in the community doing things. Everybody just basically starting something. And Imam Wazir would hint to me on a couple of different occasions because I was one of his assistants. And he said, Khalis, you got to get out there, man. It's time for you to fly.
And what was your response to that?
Well, my initial response was, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. But I think it was something about that course that just built up the confidence. And so eventually, he gave me I got a call from him, and there was, when we look for spaces to put a masjid in, we look for the toughest spaces in the city of Houston, because we don't necessarily, let's build a masjid in suburbia. We want to build it in the toughest spaces. And so initially, there was one space that we were looking at. It didn't work out, but coming from traveling that same day from looking at that space, we came upon another space, which was in Third Ward, which was basically was a good suit for us. It really fitted us.
What's the I know the basic Islamic message, but what is the message that you all use to attract people? What's the system or the message that you all, because Houston is a huge community. I heard there are over 80 masajid here in the community, but a lot of them are influenced by the work that you all do here. What is that message that helps that happen?
Mercy. We talked about arham, we talked about rahmah, mercy, and people see the masajid that's associated with Imam Warathuddin Muhammad, rahimahullah. They see them as safe, not only sacred spaces, but they see them as safe spaces, spaces where they can come and not be critiqued by the way what color their khimar is, or whether they have a kufi, or whether they do their finger like this and so that. They come and basically come as you are. And we deal with you based upon the reality where you are right now. So I think that's the main message, what people are attracted to us.
And finally, what's the hope for the future for the Houston Masjid community, particularly with the leadership, with the generation like yourself and Imam Wazir and others? What's kind of the hope for the next steps?
In my humble opinion, is basically just to keep progressing. I recall Imam Qasim Ahmed many occasions said that we want to get a masjid on every corner.
You're getting there.
Yes, and we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there. And say build a masjid, the people will come.
Yeah.
And it's just not a masjid where it's just about prayer, it's just about the 5 pillars. But it is the purpose is community life. Go out and build up the community. Do something for the people, and not just for us.
All right. We appreciate you and all you do. Give a hand, y'all, for Imam Khalis Rashad. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. I think we're going to reset, and then we'll have all of our speakers back with us. So let's give us 2 minutes. Thank you. And we're back. Let's hear it, y'all. Glad to have all of our wonderful guests here, our leaders from the Houston community. The history of Houston is right here on stage with us. Just got a few other questions for you all about the history and some of the work that you all have done. What has been the biggest struggle in terms of leading and growing in this Houston community? What do you think the biggest struggle has been, the biggest challenge? This could be anyone.
I'm thinking the biggest struggle, but it's all a struggle, but for me it's been nice and easy. And one of the things I want to mention that we haven't, and that is our school. We had a school here in Houston, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the first full-time Islamic school also here in Houston, which was a struggle because of our situation, being families not really rich, but at the same time having that desire to establish education for ourselves. So we had a school going. That was one of the highlights of my life, I think. I enjoyed it very much. This was my sidekick here. She was the principal of the school, and we did quite a few things, and very, very happy with that.
Anybody over here? We got another microphone around here somewhere. We'll get it to you in just a second.
Yeah, I would like to agree with Imam Haywood that education has always been the most difficult struggle, not just elementary education for our children, but adult education. Education, Imam W.D. Muhammad said, is the #1 priority. he saw it as that then, and it never changed. And we have to, trying to educate the community, bring them up in Quran, in Arabic, in the life example of Muhammad the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, with the influences that come from the society, you know, from inside and outside. It presented a struggle, but I think it has been surmounted in a big way, you know, not only with people getting degrees and becoming educated, but they're becoming very fluent in Quran and Arabic. And I'm very happy to see that struggle has subsided. Now the economic struggle is there.
After the hurricane, we all became painfully aware that the masjid's insurance policy had lapsed. So we had no building. We needed $500,000 to build a new building. And the most we had raised, sustained over any period of time, was probably $60,000 or $70,000. So we had a lot of people leave. They felt that was it. It was done.
That was the end.
That we would never recover. So to have the faith necessary to do the unprecedented and not knowing how it was going to get done was probably one of the biggest struggles that we faced, because we had never done it before. But Imam Muhammad said, when your knowledge runs out, your faith comes in. And trust me, all we had was faith.
So you reach into your pockets and pull out faith. Anyone else? Struggles?
Well,
What do you think? Houston is an interesting community, and I'm looking from the outside. I'm in another city. But again, going back to the 80 masajid, I mean, that's a lot for any city. I mean, even for New York and LA, I mean, 80 masajid. What is the draw to Houston? It's energy, but what is the draw? Why are so many people coming to Houston and establishing masajid? What is that?
Change your mind and be calm.
Followed up by the mercy. And when we have visitors that come in, whether they're local or from across the country, they appreciate it. And it's sincere. We come to see us, we're happy with it. We want you to experience that mercy. Because we've been through so much, and we've been without for so long. And when the hurricane came, it's like we were homeless almost again. And I already been there and done that. You know? So we appreciate the Lord has done with us. And we want you to know that we appreciate it, and that we know we appreciate you. So I think a lot of that is going on. I know it's a southern thing, but
I think another thing, although Texas is an overwhelmingly conservative state, Houston is overwhelmingly liberal in terms of voting Democratic. And so Mercy always open to new ideas inviting to people. So this is why so many cultures, Houston itself is a cultural, quote unquote, melting pot. And so people come and establish things, and so that, it's been said that, Houston, we're so far left, we're walking sideways. So just that sense of mercy, but I also think it's economics, because Texas is also, the cost of living is very, very, very cheap.
Okay, we got something to add? Okay. So the final question, we're running short on time, and we could sit here and talk all day and learn about this history. Give us a phrase or a word or a phrase or even a sentence on how you want Houston Masjid to be remembered by, or remembered by in the future. How do you want people to know the Houston Muslim community? And we'll start here and go down. Yeah, Farouk.
Thank you. Sister Name?
Two things come to my mind. One is the city of education. Some of you had the pleasure of our current man, our former man, traveling to the city and teaching you. We get down and read cases. We don't travel. They don't charge us. And even when I said it's on the best drive, it's so much big classes, more than you can imagine. The other thing is a community that lives on the faith minimum has just taken us places we never even imagined. And that's all we need.
I would have two things in mind. Hospitable, and since we are looking at the younger folks, I would like for them to see us and see and feel that we are Islamically hip.
Islamically hip. All right. All right.
Yes, I would like to say from my experience of working in this part of the country, in Houston, Texas, that it's just that work. I found workers here and people who are committed to work. And I often said many times, opportunity often comes disguised as hard work. That's why most people miss it. Well, Houston has not missed that because the work that was needed to change the direction and expand here in this area required work. And my recommendation for Houston is to keep working, never stop. In every area, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You only do we work for, and you only do we seek your help.
Allah says, وَاتَّقَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامَ. To respect Allah through whom you ask for your mutual rights and also the wombs that bore you. I would like Houston to be known as a community that reverences the womb that gave it birth. And out of Arham comes Rahim. And that's where our citywide motto is, experience the mercy.
And Imam Qasim Ahmed took the words right out of my mouth, because the first thing that came to my mind was work ethic. We will work you under the table here in Houston. This is the only way things can get done. another our motto is having a vision with no end in sight. So we're always looking to the next and for the next project.
All right. Imam Eugene Farouk, Sister Naima Bey, Imam Hayward Talib, Imam Khazim Ahmed, Imam Wazir Ali, Imam Khalis Rashad. We thank you all for your service and your continued work in our community, and inshallah this will be beneficial for the next generation and generations that come afterwards. We thank all of you, the audience, for sitting here and listening to us and being a part of this experience, and we hope this goes into the Hall of Fame and the Hall of the Library of Congress, and people learn from it and really give a real appreciation for this wonderful city. This is a city of brotherly love too, a city of brotherly love here in the South, Houston, Texas. Again, I'm your host, Rahman Khan. Thank these folks very much. Thank you all, y'all. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be ready for you next time when we go to the next city for Community Life 4. Thank you very much.